Grandma's Cruel Christmas, a holiday prank that went too far. The air crackled with anticipation, not the warm, cozy kind you expect during the holiday season, but the kind that precedes a disaster. I knew going back was a risk, letting my daughter Emma near them again, but a tiny sliver of hope had bloomed in my chest, a foolish, desperate hope that perhaps, just perhaps, they had changed. My late husband David always yearned for his family's acceptance, and for Emma's sake, I wanted to believe they could offer her the love she deserved, not the twisted version they called humor. But what unfolded that Christmas shattered that hope into a million painful pieces, leaving me questioning everything I thought I knew about family and forgiveness. My name is Brittany, and my life took an unexpected turn when I met David in the marketing department at Carson and Associates. He worked in sales, just down the hall from my office. It started innocently. We kept bumping into each other in the office kitchen during lunch breaks. I would heat up my sad microwave meals while he unpacked his perfectly organized bento box. "Those look way better than my frozen dinners," I'd joke. He'd grin and pull out an extra set of chopsticks my mom taught me how to cook. I'd laugh. "No, I'm pretty sure she regrets it now." I stopped falling for her special recipes pretty quickly. That first shared lunch turned into daily lunch dates. I talked about my grandmother, who had given me my apartment before she passed away, while he spoke passionately about his work. After 3 months of lunches, he finally asked me out properly. "Dinner tonight, somewhere that doesn't have a microwave or plastic cutlery." I said yes, and that's how our real story began. We dated for a year, and it was wonderful. David was thoughtful, funny, and kind. When he suggested moving in together, since my apartment had plenty of space, it felt perfect. Except for one thing. He met my family within the first few months of dating, but whenever I brought up meeting his, David would change the subject or make vague excuses. One night, after we'd been living together for a few months, I finally confronted him about it. We were curled up on the couch watching a movie when I paused it and turned to face him. "David, why haven't I met your family yet? Are you ashamed of me or something?" He let out a heavy sigh. "I'm not ashamed of you, Brittany. I'm ashamed of them." I laughed, thinking he was joking. "Come on, they can't be that bad." He shook his head grimly. "They think everything is a joke. And I mean everything. Even important moments, serious situations." I raised my eyebrows. "What do you mean?" He paused, his eyes filled with a dark weariness. "Do you want examples? When I was in high school, I had my first girlfriend over for dinner. My mom served spaghetti, but she replaced the noodles with rubber worms. My date screamed and threw up at the table. Everyone thought it was hilarious. She never spoke to me again. I waited for the punchline, but there wasn't one." He continued. "Or how about when I had a big presentation in middle school? My brother replaced my notebook with an identical one filled with pornographic drawings. When I opened it in front of the class, I got suspended for 2 weeks." He shook his head. As he continued sharing stories from his childhood, I began to understand why he'd been so hesitant to introduce me to his family. But I had no idea that I was about to become their next target. David proposed on a Tuesday. Nothing fancy, just the two of us in our kitchen making breakfast. "I can't imagine my life without you," he said, holding out a ring. "Will you marry me?" "Of course," I said, tears welling in my eyes. "And then inevitably, I guess it's time for you to meet my family." The Thompson family home was a charming 2-story colonial in the suburbs. Mrs. Thompson, a petite woman with David's warm brown eyes and a wide smile, greeted us at the door. Mr. Thompson stood behind her, tall and distinguished looking. "Where is David's older brother?" I wondered. Finally, Mrs. Thompson pulled me into a tight hug. "We've been dying to meet the woman who stole David's heart." The initial conversation was surprisingly normal. We sat in their cozy living room, and they asked about my job, my family, how David and I met. I started to relax. I thought David was being paranoid. "I'll get us some tea, Mrs. Thompson announced cheerfully. "Brittany dear, how do you take yours? Just a splash of milk, please." Everyone was still chatting pleasantly when Mrs. Thompson returned with the tea. I took a big sip of my tea and immediately regretted it, but it was too late. My throat was burning. Tears streamed down my face as I coughed and gasped for air. "Welcome to the family, Mr. Thompson exclaimed. "Better get used to it," David's father added, wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. I ran to the kitchen, desperately searching for water. I found a glass and filled it with ice and water, the pepper burning my nose. From the living room, I heard David shout, "What is wrong with you people? This isn't funny. She's going to be my wife, Mrs. Thompson responded in a high-pitched tone. "It's just a joke, David, it's funny." When I walked back into the living room, they took one look at me and started laughing again. "Look, she looks like a panda." That was the last straw for David. He jumped to his feet, his face red with anger. "You're all unbelievable. This is exactly why I didn't want to bring her here." He grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the door. In the car, David apologized over and over. I just hugged him, my face still burning from the pepper and humiliation. As we drove home, I realized David hadn't been exaggerating about his family at all. He had been warning me. Planning a wedding is stressful enough without having to worry about your future in-laws turning it into a practical joke playground. David and I spent weeks debating whether to invite his family at all. They're still my parents, and no matter how much I hate their pranks, I'd regret not having them there, he pleaded. He called them the next day. Mom, Dad, listen carefully, his voice was stern. You can come to the wedding, but I need your word. No pranks. This is the most important day of our lives. Mrs. Thompson promised. Of course, David. We'll behave, darling. The day of the wedding started perfectly. The ceremony was beautiful. And during the reception, everything was going smoothly. David's family was actually behaving themselves, though I noticed David watching them like a hawk. Then came time for the cake cutting. The cake was gorgeous, a tiered masterpiece adorned with flowers, but something was off. The music changed abruptly. A disco ball hung above the dance floor, and before I could process any of it, the top tier of the cake was launched at our faces, then another and another. Most of it landed on me, completely ruining my wedding dress. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then I heard the familiar sound of the Thompsons' laughter. Your face, oh my God, look at your face. I stood there, cake dripping down my dress, and burst into tears. Through my blurred vision, I saw David point towards the door, his face contorted with rage as he screamed, "Get out of my wedding right now, Mrs. Thompson," retorted David. "You're overreacting. Everyone loves a good wedding prank." David didn't respond, thank God for that decision. My mother rushed over with napkins, and my bridesmaids surrounded me protectively. Even David's Aunt Clara, who I just met that day, came over to help, shooting disgusted looks at her departing relatives. "I can't believe they're my brother's family," she muttered, helping to wipe cake from my hair. "This is a wedding, for heaven's sake." Somehow, we salvaged the rest of the reception. Our friends and my family rallied around us, turning it into a joke we were all in on, rather than one at my expense. Someone even found a backup cake. Life settled into a peaceful rhythm after the wedding disaster. David and I enjoyed our quiet existence in my grandmother's old apartment. We transformed the spare bedroom into a home office, planning to use it that way for a few years before maybe turning it into a nursery. Just over a year after our wedding, I discovered I was pregnant. David was overjoyed, spinning me around our kitchen when I told him. We decided to keep it to ourselves for the first few months, savoring the secret. I was 7 months along when David's phone rang one evening. He glanced at the caller ID, his face clouding over. "Your mother," I said, recognizing his expression. "They know about the baby," he said flatly. "Mom's insisting they have a right to meet their grandchild." I instinctively put my hands over my swollen belly. "No pranks around the baby," I said firmly. "Absolutely none," David agreed before answering the phone. When Emma was born, she had 10 perfect fingers and 10 perfect toes. Just one visit, David negotiated with them. "And if there's even a hint of a prank, you're out forever." They came on a Sunday afternoon, looking innocent enough. I watched them like a hawk, looking for any sign of mischief, but they were surprisingly normal. Mrs. Thompson cradled Emma in her arms, tears in her eyes. That visit led to others. They'd come over every few weeks. Still, I never fully relaxed around them. I refused every dinner invitation. During one of their visits, Mrs. Thompson started chatting about James. "Oh, he got married last month. Such a small ceremony. Just at the courthouse. His Carolyn refused to have a proper wedding." She shook her head disapprovingly. "I don't understand why." I bit my tongue to keep from saying, "Really, you don't understand why." Instead, I just nodded, thinking about my own ruined wedding dress and exploding cake. In my head, I could imagine exactly how that conversation had gone between James and Carolyn. She probably heard the stories about my wedding. Either way, I was relieved to be denying them any opportunity for their special brand of humor. Life has a way of shattering when you least expect it. David kissed Emma and I goodbye before heading to work. A drunk driver ran a red light at 9:17 By 9:20 my world had irrevocably changed. Emma didn't understand at first. She was only 7, too young to fully grasp the concept of never coming back. Each time she asked when Daddy was coming home, my heart broke all over again. The days leading up to the funeral passed in a blur. My mother practically moved in, handling arrangements, and watching Emma. I couldn't cry anymore. I felt hollow. I barely registered their presence until it was time for the eulogy. Then, his parents stood up to speak. "David always loved a good joke, Mr. Thompson began, a smile creeping onto his face. "Remember when he was 5? And we convinced him his teddy bear had come alive and eaten all his Halloween candy." Mrs. Thompson chimed in with a giggle. "Even though he never applied to clown college, he would have done amazing. But he became a salesman instead." His face was priceless. The church was silent. No one laughed. Emma clutched my hand, confused. "And now he's up there, Mr. Thompson concluded, looking towards the ceiling. I felt something snap inside me. My whole body started shaking with rage. Emma must have felt it because she looked up at me with worried eyes. After the service, while people were gathering for the reception, I approached the Thompsons. My voice was quiet, but sharp enough to cut glass. How dare you, I hissed. How dare you turn my husband's funeral into a joke? Oh, Brittany, Mrs. Thompson reached for my arm. David would have appreciated the humor. He always did. I jerked away from her touch. What you do is cruel and thoughtless. I never want to see any of you again. You're not welcome in our lives anymore. Emma and I are done with all of you. But our family, Mrs. Thompson protested, finally looking concerned. No, I said firmly. We're not family. Family doesn't humiliate each other. Family doesn't ruin weddings or mock funerals. We're done. I turned and walked away, leaving them standing there. They never understood, and they never would. I threw myself into being both mother and father to Emma. We heard bits and pieces about the Thompsons through the grapevine. James had 2 kids now. I always quickly scrolled past, determined to keep that chapter of our lives firmly closed. Then came the phone call, 3 days before Christmas. Mrs. Thompson's voice was older, more fragile. Please don't hang up, she said. I almost did anyway, but Emma was sitting next to me on the couch. She looked up, curious. We miss Emma, Mrs. Thompson continued. And you, Brittany. Please, would you consider spending Christmas with us? The whole family will be there. We'd love to see you. I started to say no, but something stopped me. There will be absolutely no pranks, I said firmly. No jokes. Nothing like that. Just a normal Christmas dinner. They must have been on speakerphone, because I heard Mr. Thompson agree. Maybe it was the mention of David, or maybe it was the hope for Emma, but I found myself agreeing. We'll come, I said, but I mean it about the pranks. After hanging up, Emma and I went shopping. If we were doing this, we were doing it right. We picked out a gaming console for James and Carolyn's kids. Do you think Grandma and Grandpa got me something nice? Emma asked as we wrapped the gifts. I'm sure they did, sweetheart, I said, trying to sound convincing. Emma threw herself into choosing wrapping paper and writing cards. The Thompson house looked exactly the same as I remembered it, decorated with twinkling Christmas lights and a wreath on the door. Emma squeezed my hand as we walked up the path. James and his family were already there when we arrived. His wife, Carolyn, gave me a warm, almost apologetic smile as she helped us with our coats. The boys ran off to play. The gift-giving started promisingly. Emma and I handed out our presents, including the gaming consoles and games. Then it was the Thompsons' turn. Emma's fingers trembled slightly as she unwrapped her first gift from her grandparents in 5 years. I'll never forget the look on her face when she opened that box. A toy dog that mimics feces. The laughter started immediately. Mr. Thompson and James were practically howling. Even the boys joined in. Oh my God, look at their faces, their expressions are priceless. My own box contained similar junk: expired candy, a broken comb. That's enough, I said softly, but with a dangerous edge. Where are the real presents, Mrs. Thompson wiped tears of laughter from her eyes. What do you mean? Those are the presents. You can't be serious. You haven't seen your granddaughter in 5 years, and you give her this trash, Mr. Thompson gave a confused look. Come on, Brittany, learn to take a joke. I watched the tears roll down Emma's cheek. Without a word, I stood up and walked over to James' children. I'm sorry, boys, I said, taking back the gaming consoles. But these are returning to the store. Mom, they wailed as I moved on to James and Carolyn. I turned on them, furious. You gave a 12-year-old girl who lost her father fake dog poop for Christmas. It was just a joke, James started, but I cut him off. We're leaving, Emma, I said. Get your coat. The drive home was quiet. Emma stared out the window, clutching her empty gift. I'm sorry, sweetheart, I finally said. I really thought they'd changed. It's okay, Mom, she replied softly. Can we watch Christmas movies and make hot chocolate when we get home? Of course, we can, I said, my heart aching. We'll have our own Christmas. And that's exactly what we did. We spent the rest of Christmas Day in our pajamas, baking cookies, and watching cheesy movies. The day after Christmas, I was scrolling through Facebook when I saw James's post. Terrible Christmas yesterday. My sister-in-law showed her true colors. Some people just don't understand family traditions and humor. My poor boys were heartbroken. Christmas ruined. How horrible. What can Doffer Strantrast Shezen stocks? My hands were shaking as I typed my response. You want to talk about cruelty? Let me tell you about your family traditions. After 5 years of no contact, they gave my grieving daughter a toy that mimics dog feces as a Christmas present. They gave me clearance bin items with price tags still attached. Let me tell you all about my wedding day, where they rigged our wedding cake to explode in my face, or about my husband's funeral, where they turned his eulogy into a stand-up comedy routine about pranking him as a child. You want to talk about toxic family traditions? I hit post and waited. More stories started flooding in. Oh, remember cousin Sarah's graduation? They replaced her diploma with a joke certificate during the photo op. And they put laxatives in the punch at my baby shower. I even saw Carolyn, James' wife, liked several of the comments. The phone calls started that evening. First, James called Brittany. I never thought about it like that. Reading everyone's stories. God, we've been awful. Then Mr. and Mrs. Thompson called the next day. We never meant to hurt anyone, Mrs. Thompson said, her voice shaking. We thought everyone was laughing with us. We thought it was all in good fun. Mr. Thompson continued, we've always been this way, it's how we show love. But maybe we've been showing it wrong. I took a deep breath. You have to understand, they are cruel. They hurt your granddaughter, more than you can imagine. We see that now, Mrs. Thompson whispered. Can you ever forgive us? I don't know, I answered honestly. I'm glad you're finally realizing how your behavior affects others, but I can't just forget everything that's happened. A delivery truck arrived a few days later, bringing a large package. It was from the Thompsons, along with a heartfelt letter of apology, with a note stating, everyone deserves a real Christmas. The box contained actual gifts, a new winter coat for Emma and some of my favorite perfume. Now, 6 months later, we have a cautious peace. We meet occasionally for coffee or lunch in neutral places. The Thompsons are trying. There are no more cruel jokes, and Emma video chats with her cousins sometimes. David would be proud of this progress, I think. He always hoped his family would understand someday. Maybe they finally do. Given everything you've heard, do you think I handled this situation the best way I could? Was I right to cut them off after the funeral, even temporarily? Was giving them another chance at Christmas a mistake, or a necessary step for Emma? And how do you feel about their apology and attempts at reconciliation now? I'm genuinely curious to hear your perspective on this complicated family drama, and any advice you might have for navigating such a delicate situation moving forward.